Hey everyone, how is everyone doing tonight? Hope everyone has having a great week. We are getting to the end of this week, so hope everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Give a second to kind of get everything started here. It has been a while since I've done a live stream, so took me a minute to get everything back set up again. So hopefully I have it all in working order. So we will find out shortly. So, hey, is it Emmy? Emi? Hope I'm saying that correctly. Well, it's not Friday the 13th here just yet. So I've got a few hours before I've got to worry about that, but best of luck to you. So I am got a few things planned tonight. I want to kind of go through the fourth edition rules and just read through like the quick start rule guide that came out when Keep of the Shadowfell was released, and then I want to build a character in fourth edition and then run through at least one encounter just to see the process and kind of go through that. So I've been, if you've been watching my channel, then you know that I've been going through and kind of revisiting fourth edition and almost looking at it as though it is the new edition that's coming out. I know we've got the updated fifth edition rules coming out next year, but while everybody's looking at that, I'm kind of looking back at fourth edition and kind of getting excited and reminding myself of what it was like when I was first playing that version of the game. So that kind of got me thinking, as I want to try to get back into live streams. I said, why don't I put together a live stream and kind of look at the rules and make a character and actually run through an encounter, and just for fun. So we'll see how it goes. So certainly welcome any questions, comments as I go through this, and we can go off the rails if we want to. I'm perfectly okay with that too. So this is a pretty free form. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. And I think all the technology appears to be working okay. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing I was going to jump in to do was take a look at the fourth edition rules. So and I don't know, for those watching, how familiar you are with fourth edition and some of the history of it. I came into D&D, well, towards the end of fourth edition, honestly. By the time I started playing D&D, fourth edition had already been announced that they were going to be going to D&D next, but I didn't realize that. So I just got fourth edition and was into it, and I just loved it right out of the box. So, couldn't have been happier. And then when fifth edition came out, I was happy with that too. So, but now going back and looking at fourth edition, I really appreciate some of the stuff that they did there. So, yeah, and I'm definitely liking some of the stuff that's in fourth edition being used in the newer things that are coming out. With Pathfinder 2 uses a lot of fourth edition stuff, and I see a lot of it in the Tales of the Valiant, and even some of the new playtest materials for fifth edition. There's just these little hints of things that were in fourth edition that I'm liking to see. So that's always nice. So yeah, that's where we are. So let's take a look at where we are. So Keep on the Shadowfell was released before the fourth edition rules came out. They had a quick start rule set that they released, but prior to all of that, the player's handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide and all that, they actually released Keep on the Shadowfell, which included the quick start rules with it. And so that was kind of your first peek at the rules for fourth edition, and that's what I wanted to take a look at today and kind of go through them. And I've been going back through it and trying to refresh my memory. Got so much history with fifth edition, and sometimes you forget some of the stuff that was in fourth edition. But I want to take a look at it and kind of walk through some of those quick start rules, and more specifically talk about some of the things that were different in fourth edition from what they are in fifth edition, and some of the things that we maybe like and don't like. So let me flip over to that screen here, and let's have a look at the rules. So the cover that I've got here is actually from the quick start rule set that came out later, but these rules that I'm showing actually came from the quick Keep on the Shadowfell. The adventure book included the quick start rules, so it's so it kind of gives you a really nice overview of everything that you needed. So playing Cobalt Hall solo. Yeah, see, so many. I do know that I played a lot of combat in 4th edition, and it definitely. I will admit that from coming from 4th edition and going to 5th edition, 5th edition was not nearly as intensive. So there was you could kind of feel that you could do more stuff theater of the mind and a little more naturally in 5th edition, but it also, you lost some of the more tactical things that you had in 4th edition, and it really just depends what you do with it. I think all the rule sets that are out there. It's what you make of it. If you want to be a stickler and follow the rules exactly as they are and not deviate from it, then your experience is going to be different from somebody who is a little more flexible and is, kind of adapts things to their style of play. And if your style of play is you want combat to be really fast and stuff, and you pick up 4th edition and you're following the rules strictly to the way they're written, then yeah, you might be a little disappointed, because it is intended for you to be much more tactical in how you go through the combat. So I can understand that, but it was, but I never had a problem with the 4th edition combat. I think I enjoyed the 4th edition combat and being able to do all those things and all the powers and the different moves that you could do. So I thought it was really good. And I love the fact that there's so many people out there that are also into 4th edition. When I started my channel and I was kind of trying to figure out what my focus was going to be, and because I love D&D, and it was only after I started kind of putting up some 4th edition stuff that I realized how many people there were out there that actually loved 4th edition, and as much as I did, and were interested in seeing stuff about it. So I'm really, really happy to see that there is a community of people that really do love that version and the good things that it brought into D&D. Yeah, so Benjamin, that virtual tabletop, I know that was part of the plan for 4th edition. But from what I understand, and this is, again, I came in kind of towards the end of 4th edition when it was out, but they actually released some beta, it might have not even been beta, might have been alpha versions of a virtual tabletop, but you're talking, 2008, 2009, 2010, technology wasn't what it is now. And so it just never really got anywhere. And by then the sales weren't what they wanted to. They really didn't do a very good job. They needed to have that virtual tabletop when they released the game, and it would have made a world of difference. But without that, it was kind of hard to get people excited about it when it was, I enjoyed it as it was without a virtual tabletop, but I think that would have made a huge difference if they had that from the very beginning. And yeah, and the tactical stuff is that's the thing that I just really loved in 4th edition. I remember first getting into it, is all the different powers that you had and the things that you could do for moving around the battlefield and changing things. And again, there's conditions and things in 5th edition and other versions. So they're not unique to 4th edition, but you just had so much that you can do to move around, and the different characters had things that allowed you to focus on specific aspects of the encounter, which was wonderful. So I just love that. I had the D&D Insider when it was out. So, and I used it a little bit for making characters. So using the character builder in that. And the problem I had is that I was so new to D&D, and by that time, like, all the stuff had been released. So if I had come into 4th edition, like right when it was released, and they had the D&D Insider with the character builder, and all you had was the player's handbook, and then over the years I was able to add in the other stuff, then it would have been fine. But I was coming in at the end, and all of those additional supplemental materials were already there, and it was just a lot to try to sort through in the character builder, which made it a little bit cumbersome for me. So I appreciate the fact that there was a tool, but it just I never actually used it a whole lot myself. Yeah, my first experience with D&D. Well, so I played D&D back in like junior high. I played like one session of D&D with some kids from school, and then not again until 2012 actually, when I got the 4th edition starter set, the red box, and that's where I was hooked. And so my first experience is with 4th edition, and loved it from the get-go. I've heard about that. The character builder is, I think I've came across it on the web, but I've never tried to actually install that character builder myself. But I have seen some videos of people installing it, and I really should give that one a try just to see how it is. So let me see. I want to pull up. I'm gonna take a look at the rule set and just kind of walk through some of the stuff that's in it. You know, I mean, a lot of the stuff in 4th edition is very similar to what you have in the other versions, which is always the thing that I find humorous when people talk about how 4th edition was so different but then when I go through the rules, so much of it is really the same. If you've played Dungeons and Dragons, at least since 3rd edition anyway, you know, so much of the stuff that you do is the same with your characters and the things that they can do and your skills and all the checks and even the way combat works. The real difference is just simply kind of how it's presented and the types of things that you have. So, you know, if you look at the core mechanic, you know, is you just, you know, decide what you want your character to do and tell the dungeon master, then you roll a D20 and they check it and determines whether you're successful. So that's pretty straightforward, similar to any other version of Dungeons and Dragons. So, and that's really the core of what it is. And so at its most basic, 4th edition is Dungeons and Dragons. Skill checks, you know, I think there's a lot more skill checks or skills, I should say, in 5th edition. In 4th edition, I mean, I don't think there's quite as many. So, and so that was a little change, and they changed some of them, not nearly as many as they had in 3rd edition. So they definitely dialed it down there. And I think that might've been something that people didn't like and kind of drove people towards that attitude that 4th edition was all about combat, because they got rid of a lot of those skill checks that might've been more for the exploration and the social encounters and stuff. So, you know, but 5th edition doesn't have that many either. So it's, you know, they still kept the low number. So that doesn't really change anything. So I'm trying to stay on top of the chat as we're going through here. So if you see me pause, it's just me reading the chat and trying to keep up with the conversation. So I appreciate all the input. It's, you know, everybody's got such good experiences with 4th edition. Yeah, Nick, the rules were not actually hard. I mean, the fact that I had not really ever played D&D ever, and that was the game, the edition that I used, and I picked it up fairly quickly, shows that the rules were pretty easy to grasp. And I think the way that it was structured allowed for that. It was written in a way that made it easy to really understand. And I could see how other editions of the game are not quite as simple. So they can be a little harder to pick up for somebody that's new to it and has never played any of it before. So I personally like the way that it's put together. And the powers, you know, definitely made it super easy to understand. Here's a thing that my character can do. Here's a thing that my character can do. You know, it's not buried within the class features and things where it's a lot of narrative that you've got to read through to figure out what it is you actually do. It just comes right out and says, here's the thing that you can do. So I definitely appreciated that. So let's see. So did skill checks, attack rolls, you know, same principle as what you get. Choose the attack type that you want. So you can do your melee or your ranged attack, or you could use a power. So you have your basic attacks that you can do, or use power, you know, similar to in 5th edition, you know, you have your basic attacks, or you can do something different if you have some sort of special thing that you can do with your particular class that you're using. Choose a target within range, roll a d20, add your attack modifier, and that's your total result. You know, again, exactly the same. The one difference with 4th edition is that the powers had things that had different checks. It wasn't always some like weapon attack versus armor class. It was, you had things that were not even saving throws, but it was like something versus strength, or your strength versus their constitution or something like that. So you had some different variations of those in the powers, and maybe later on when we're looking at some of the powers when we're creating the character, we can look at that a little closer. So that was definitely something a little different from 3rd edition, and something that went away when they went to 5th edition is some of those different types of attacks. I'm sure there's maybe some of that still, but it was kind of more of a big thing in the in 4th edition, that you had different types of attacks of what you would use to attack and what you were attacking against. So you might be your strength versus someone's constitution, or it might be your dexterity versus something else, in addition to just like saving throws and things like that. So there's a whole nother layer to that. So, one thing I like the narrative with the powers. You get the one little line, and I like it because it gives you a description of what it looks like. And it's just enough to plant a seed and kind of get your imagination going. It's not laying it out and saying, here, this is what this has to be. Which a lot of people seem to indicate that it is. But it's not. I look at the flavor text for the power is just enough to get your mind going. Then you can kind of describe it however you want to describe it. And you just take it from there. The more detail that you put in it, the more it seems like that's what you're supposed to do. But if you just give a little hint of what this power might look like, then you can allow the player to run wild with it. And that's something that I like. Some of the other powers or features that you have in the other versions, there's so much narrative that goes with it, so much description of that particular power, you kind of feel obligated that that's exactly what it is, and you don't have that freedom to put your own spin on it, if you will. So, skill challenges is an interesting, that's an interesting thing that I know is always something that is a point of contention. And they're not unique to 4th edition. Skill challenges, I'm not sure if they came out in 3rd edition, but they certainly had them in Pathfinder, and they continue to exist in other forms in other games too. That was probably the thing when I first started with 4th edition that was the most confusing for me. I remember playing the Red Box starter set, and it had the section where you're like interacting with the dragon, and there's like a white dragon there that you're having to talk with. And it was really confusing for me. I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to do, because it had the different types of skills that you could use, and you had to get this many successes. And I wasn't quite sure that skill challenges were definitely the hardest thing for me to grasp as a new player. But I definitely appreciate what they did. I like the idea that you could take a role-playing encounter and actually put some structure around it. I have some different opinions on how I would have done those and the approach I would have taken to it, but I think they're fine. I don't think it's a bad mechanic. And I think it was an interesting take on it, and I think they get a bad rap, but it's definitely, I could understand those being a little difficult for new players, if only because I know I struggle a little bit as someone that was new to D&D for that. Oh yeah, so I saw Ace, armor class, reflex, fortitude, will. So yeah, so all of those were defenses instead of being saving throws. So that's what the different powers would actually go up against those different things, which was so just a slightly different take from what you have in the other versions. Yeah, as I put poll questions out there and I put up my videos and I see the comments that come back, there's always the people that have their opinions about 4th edition, and that's fine. I do completely understand that it is different and it's not for everybody. So if you don't like 4th edition, then I'm not telling you that, well, you're wrong, you should like 4th edition. If you don't like 4th edition, then don't like 4th edition. That's okay. I've looked at some of the older editions of the game, and because I didn't play those games when they were out, they're a little harder for me to get into. I like the more current mechanics that they have and everything since they did D20. But I understand if someone doesn't like 4th edition, where it's always weird for me is when people make the absolute statement that says, not only do they not like 4th edition, but that 4th edition is bad. That 4th edition is awful. That 4th edition ruined D&D. And it's like, and it's their opinion that they don't like the game, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good game. It doesn't mean that it's not Dungeons and Dragons. It doesn't mean that other people don't like it. So, and the reasons that people give are usually a little questionable for me, and they seem like they're just kind of off the shelf answers that have been floating around on the internet for years, as opposed to someone who's actually been playing the game and reached that conclusion. So, but regardless of that, I'm just glad that there's a good number of people out there that do like the version and enjoy playing it as much as I do. So, and I'm glad that we're all here talking about it. Yeah, so the skill challenges in the DMG. So my first exposure to it was in the red box starter set, and then the Dungeon Master's Guide does have a section on skill challenges. I think the Dungeon Master's Guide 2 has a much better explanation of skill challenges, and it gives a lot of good examples of what skill challenges are and how to use them, and here's some that you can actually use right out of the box. So I like the Dungeon Master 2 approach to it better. But no question there can be a little, for me, can be a little bit confusing for someone who's new. Yeah, I agree with the, 5th edition. They definitely took a step back with 5th edition and kind of, made it a little more approachable. And I think that's partly why 5th edition is so popular now, is because, and that's their intent. And again, it's another thing that people complain that D&D is not good at this and it's not good at that. Well, they're not trying to be good at this and they're trying to be good at that. They're trying to be approachable to as many people as possible. So it does everything okay. And some things a little better than others, but it doesn't try to be the best at everything, because if it did, it probably would be good at nothing. So 5th edition, they definitely took a step back and said, how can we make this so that it's more approachable for people that are new to the game? And I think they accomplished that. And so someone that's coming from 5th edition and going to 4th edition will have a much easier time of it, because 5th edition was made to be approachable. I think the way that 4th edition is written, for certain people like myself, where it's I can be very structured. And so when I see the rules written in a way where it's very clear that this is the stuff that you do, and here's what this happens, then this happens, and this happens. When I see the rules written that way, it's very easy for me to follow that. And I definitely appreciate that from the 4th edition approach that they took, as opposed to it being more of a narrative approach where you're kind of almost like you're reading a book, and you kind of, the rules are filtered in there or sprinkled into the narrative, and you kind of got to filter that stuff out. So, but I mean, just two different approaches. So. Yeah, Nick, I agree that, the gatekeepers are a problem anyway, because, they have their idea of what's right and what's wrong as far as the game goes. And then, and anyone that's not doing it their way is not doing it right. And that's just a problem. And then they'll complain about that the game is too, that 4th edition was way too structured, and it didn't have any flexibility. And then they'll complain that 5th edition is too loose with the rules and allows people to do everything they want. And it's like, so there's no sweet spot in between. So, maybe you just can't please some people. So. Yeah, for Pathfinder, the 3.5 crowd definitely jumped to Pathfinder. I mean, when I first started playing, so I went to, so I started with 4th edition, but I couldn't find a table that played 4th edition. Nobody was playing 4th edition. So I ended up having to go to Pathfinder because I was playing 4th edition. So the group that I found was a Pathfinder group, and and I played with them for several months, and but was lamenting that I couldn't actually find a fourth edition group to play with. But I enjoyed Pathfinder. I liked it, and I know that particular group they did not like fourth edition, so they had no intention of even moving to fifth edition. I don't know if they ever did because we went our separate ways long before that. But yeah, definitely, Paizo definitely took advantage of the situation with fourth edition. To get Pathfinder out there. They were planning that move anyway, based on some of the other stuff that Wizards was doing, but it certainly worked in their favor. Yeah, I watch a lot of the Matt Colville stuff, and nice to see that he's got. I know he is definitely he likes a lot of the fourth edition. He's got a whole video specifically talking about combat and how you can use some of that stuff in fifth edition, which is nice because definitely there is a lot of cool stuff that would apply. There's a few rules in particular that I like from fourth edition that I don't understand why they went away. I feel probably the biggest one is like the bloodied condition as an actual thing that meant something. That seems like something that was a really cool thing to have, so that when you have those monsters that you're fighting that have tons of hit points, if you had something that happened when they dropped to half their hit points, then it adds a little extra layer. But once you get rid of that, now you're fighting this monster, and basically it's just a bag of hit points now, and you got to get it all the way down to nothing before anything happens. So that was a thing that I wish they had kept in fifth edition. It seems like a really good thing to apply to all of them. I'm not sure why that didn't carry forward. Bloodied minions. How does a minion get bloodied if they die as soon as you hit them? I'd be interested to hear how that works. So let's see. So looking at so the other thing that they had is kind of skipping ahead some of these rules is the actions that, standard action, move action, minor action, free action, and then you could swap them around. So you could trade in your standard action for a move action or a minor action. You could trade in a move action for a minor action. So they had tiers to them, which I personally feel is kind of a precursor to an approach of like the 3-action economy that Pathfinder 2 has. Not nearly as clean as that. I think the 3-action economy was a nice evolution of that. But I like the fact that they had these actions that you could swap around and use for different things. So I don't actually know whether that's something that existed in 3.5 and just carried forward, or if that was something that was new in 4th edition, the fact that you could swap those actions or not. But I liked how you had that flexibility in what you were doing. So if I had it kind of going back to skill challenges, I think probably my one complaint about skill challenges is I don't like the notion of, as the dungeon master, having to try to anticipate everything that the players might do. So I don't like the fact that you're taking an encounter and you're saying, okay, what's the possible things that they could get from this? And I've got to make note of those. And those are my list of things that they can have success with. I do like the idea of the players being able to have kind of free reign in those sorts of encounters. So I agree that I think having it as a guide where it kind of gives you some ideas of some of the information that's out there to be had. So if they roll a history check, then there's this piece of information they could get. Or if they roll some other kind of check, there's another piece of information. Having those as notes for the dungeon master to help them in the role playing of it, I think is really great. Kind of restricting the players to those sorts of actions. And telling the players you can only do like 2 history checks during this encounter, kind of takes away from the notion that a player might come up with something else that if they come up with a good idea that would technically require a history check. And I'm not saying, you can always be flexible and do it anyway. I'm not one of those that's going to be hard and fast to the rules. I would certainly be flexible with that. but that's how it always seemed to come across with strict skill challenges, is that you were not only defining the obstacle, but you were also defining the only way that they could succeed at it, which was just kind of weird for me. So, that was my one, if I had a complaint about the skill challenges, is that approach to it just needed some tweaking. So. That's a good point about the different actions. So yeah, a standard, because if you just, with the 3 action economy, you're just kind of, you're tagging how many actions it requires. But with having a standard action versus a move action versus a minor action, the standard actions have a lot more power to them. They're the things that really have some weight. So to sacrifice a standard action to take another a second move action, it has a greater cost to it. And so I would agree with that. That's a good point, that if you, that having it broken down this way it kind of gives a little bit of an edge, because you're making the player have to think a little harder about whether they want to, give up that standard action to do an extra move or something like that. Yeah, Clark, I agree. I mean, I am, so when I'm DMing a game, I play fast and loose with the rules. Do not run a table that, if you're a rules lawyer, you're probably not going to enjoy playing at my table, because I will always bend the rules in the nature of having, or in the intention of having fun. So if someone comes up with some really cool thing they want to do, as long as it's plausible and not just a complete, going against everything, I'm going to tend towards, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Sure. Here, roll this check and let's see how it works out. I am going to bend those rules as much as I can to try to keep it all enjoyable. So, when it comes to the skill challenges, I definitely would not be, restricting myself to just what's there or anything like that. I'm going to play it the way the players want to play it, and I'll be as flexible as I can. And I think the problem comes in is that there are folks that do like to play by the rules and exactly what's written. And if it says this monster has 57 hit points, well, by golly, that monster's not going to go down until you've accounted for 57 hit points. So, and so when you have people that want to follow the rules like that, some of those things can be more difficult, because it really does lock you into a thing that maybe isn't the most enjoyable, at least for some people. So some tables may be perfectly fine with that. Other ones, not so much. And I could see how some people could look at it and say, no, it's too rigid for me. So just depends on what you're into and what your table, how your table wants to play the game. Mm-hmm. Sorry, reading the chat again. So appreciating all the comments from everybody. I wish they had a chance to. I know they did D&D 4th edition Essentials, where they made some tweaks, and I am not an expert on what the differences are between 4th edition and the 4th edition Essentials line. I know they tried to streamline some things and tweak it, but it was kind of too little, too late. But I do wish that we had a true 4.5, and I don't think Essentials really qualifies as 4.5. But, where we kind of added in the things that people were complaining about, and maybe made a few tweaks where we could have seen that. I feel like if they just made a few other changes to it, it would have satisfied the problems that people were having, and we could have continued. And right now we'd be still playing an extension of 4th edition, instead of completely giving up on it and moving in a new direction, basically going back to 3rd edition. I mean, once 5th edition came out, I look at it and they basically just went right back to 3rd edition and said, let's make 3rd edition easier. and we'll just forget about fourth edition entirely. So I just I wish that we had more time where they could have just tweaked fourth edition and tried to, make it better. And I think it would have gotten there. Yeah, it's a good point about the limiting the skill usage. So, because you do have that, especially with 3.5 and Pathfinder and stuff, where there's so many skills and you can get such high values in certain skills. And I guess I would argue that that maybe is a feature of those games, that you as a player, you're trying to become the best at a particular skill. And so therefore you get to do that thing. And so every time you go to a locked door, you're the one that everybody looks at to do that, to unlock the door, to pick the lock or disable it or whatever. And that was kind of the way that game was designed. So you do end up with someone who has a plus 12 or something in disabled device. And, but fourth edition tried to do away with that. So they tried to reel that back in. So your bonuses, you don't have as much distinction in, you wouldn't be somebody that has this huge advantage in your skills. So, and I think that's just a design choice that they went with. And I'm okay with either one. It's just a play style that, whatever you prefer. I could see the benefits of both, that, having that where you can specialize in a skill and become the person that needs to do it is good. But I also can understand trying to make it a little less of a distinction between each person's abilities with a skill. So Essentials streamline the character creation. I have the Heroes of the Fallen Lands, Heroes of the Forgotten Realms. I have those books. I had gotten those fairly early on, actually. But whenever I'm creating characters, I always just go back to the player's handbook. So I haven't done like a comparison to see how much it varies. I knew that they were compatible with each other, and honestly, it wasn't until even after 5th edition came out, I think, I didn't even realize that Essentials was a separate thing. Because my first book thing that I got was the Red Box starter set, which was D&D Essentials, and I didn't realize that it was separate from 4th edition until much later, when I discovered that there had been an earlier starter set before the Red Box. I kind of just assumed that the Red Box was the one that was released when 4th edition came out. But then it was only during my research into the history of it that I realized that there was a distinction. So I had used both of the rules Essentials and the regular rules and never noticed anything different about them. So I just haven't taken the time to really dig into some of the specifics. And I suppose I could agree, with the, that it helped newcomers. Essentials helped the newcomers to the game, because that was what I started with. So, when I came in unknowingly, I was using the Essentials line with that Red Box, and it certainly got me hooked on the game. So I guess it did its job, at least for my part. So yeah, Clark, sorry. I don't mean to tick off any rules, the rules lawyers out there. I appreciate the rules lawyers, because they do keep me honest, and sometimes they reel me in a little bit if I'm kind of getting a little too lax with some things. I try to keep things where it's like, okay, I think of it from the spirit of the rule, that you're wanting to not make it so that people, if the character can't fly, well, then they can't fly, and you can't do something that would be like that. But there's some cool things they might be able to do just this side of that I might be a little more willing to do, to allow them, with appropriate skill checks to do it. So, I mean, it's very situational. So I couldn't even really give you an example of how I would work in that regard, but it's just something that I've always been tried to be flexible as much as I can. But I do need the people that are sticklers for the rules to keep me in check sometimes too. Yeah, as far as the echo chamber, I'm falling behind in some of the chat. So the, I seeing the comment about the echo chamber, and I think it's, that's certainly the case. I mean, anytime you have a group of people that are for one thing or against another thing, and they're all in the same group, then naturally that opinion is going to be the one that is strongest there, and those folks will defend their position to the end. So, we got a group of people that like 4th edition, and we're going to be talking all the wonderful things about 4th edition. You get into another group and it's people that hate 4th edition. Well, then those people are going to, be talking about how awful 4th edition is. So, and then you put those two groups together and it turns into an interesting conversation. So yeah. And I put polls out there all the time where I ask questions that kind of are comparing, different editions of D&D, and the responses that I get back will maybe be a little more skewed towards 4th edition. And I completely get that that's not an objective survey. That's people that have subscribed to my channel and are generally more open to 4th edition anyway. So naturally they're going to provide responses to the poll that are a little more welcoming of 4th edition. So it's not scientific by any means. I know that when I finally got the, which, and I don't remember which one it was, Heroes of the Forgotten Kingdoms, or, but whichever one had the druid in it, because I wanted to make a druid. I remember pretty early on, I thought it would be cool. So I got that book and was able to make a druid. So I liked some of the other creatures or races that they had in there. Classes, I should say. Sorry. So, the one comment, is it Tigress? I think it's Tigress. With the magic classes being almost the same, it's like, and I see that across it's one of the common things about, I find it interesting when people make complaints about 4th edition that are really the same in every edition. And I'm not saying that you're making a complaint or anything. It's just got me thinking about the thing I hear. One of the things I hear about is that everything's the same in 4th edition. All the classes are the same. And it's like, I think they look the same because they structured it. They streamlined how they structured everything, to make it easier to follow so that you can, whatever class you want to play, it's pretty much the same process for setting it up and almost the same process for actually playing it. There's slight differences. If you're going to play a wizard in 4th edition, it does have some differences from playing a fighter. But a lot of the stuff when you're creating that character is very similar. Whereas in the other games in 5th edition, for instance, if you're going to play a wizard, you've got some different stuff you have to do. But honestly, if you peel back the layers of, if I'm going to play a sorcerer versus a cleric versus a wizard versus I don't know, some other spellcasting class, and you really look at it, it's like, well, it's the same rules. The only difference is what ability score is your spellcasting ability, and how do you prepare your spells every day. That's mostly the difference. Maybe how you get new spells might be slightly different, but that's really the only difference. Everything else is, you're still casting the same spells. You have a spell list and you're casting the same types of spells. So there's a lot of similarities. Once you can have a wizard and a sorcerer and like a cleric, and yeah, they could be all different. But once you start adding more classes and the spell list that all those classes use is the same, there's not a whole lot different then. Everything that's different is just flavor. It's not mechanical differences. It's just flavor. And so, when you get into 4th edition and you've got these different spellcasting classes, and they each have their own powers, and clerics have their own powers, and wizards have their own powers, and sorcerers have their own powers. And, and on top of that, the wizards have spells. They to me, they're actually more different in 4th edition than they are in 5th edition because of the fact that they have these powers that they're doing that are unique to them. And so it's a whole different thing, which kind of leads me to another thing with 4th edition and the powers is I hear all the time that all the powers were the same. Everything just gets a +2 bonus or, or +4 bonus or whatever it is. And it's like, well, that's kind of true of everything. There's only so many things you can do with the rules, add a 1d4 or do a +2 or roll with advantage. You can put all the flavor text around it you want, but the bottom line is that all this spell or feature or feat or power does is it gives you a +1d4. And, you write 10 different types of flavor text around it and give it to a bunch of different classes. And it looks like it's something different, but it's essentially doing the same thing. 4th edition was the same way. There's only so many things you can do with how you roll the dice and how many dice you roll and how much you can move an opponent on the battle mat and all that sort of thing. So sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I tend to do that. So, but the unfortunate thing is I'm falling behind on the chat. So I apologize for that. Oh yeah. So stealth, because you had spot checks, you had listen checks, you had search. So that's where all that whole big list of skills that you had in 3.5, they knocked those down into just perception to keep it simple. So, which is another nice step forward in my opinion. Yeah, so I don't have a lot of experience with the differences between Essentials and 4th edition, but I think they probably took the wrong approach with it. I think they were trying to take that step back that you mentioned in terms of making it simpler for people to get into the game. But I don't necessarily think that I think by making this Essentials line was just confusing. I think for the people that didn't have a problem with 4th edition, having this Essentials line didn't really add any value for them. And then the number of new people out there that were only not trying 4th edition because they thought it was too complicated was probably not very big in the first place. So you're putting together a product that didn't really have an audience. The people that liked 4th edition didn't need it. And the people that weren't playing 4th edition probably wasn't going to change their mind just by reducing this simpler version. So, that's my 2 cents on that one. I haven't done the vampire class. I haven't looked at that one very close. I'll be honest. I most of my stuff, first couple, players handbooks. Outside of that, I haven't really looked into too much of the other stuff. So I still have to get further into those. For years, I only had the first player's handbook. It's only recently that I even got the second player's handbook. So I do agree with 5th edition. Again, it goes back to that approachability with 5th edition. I think you can make a new character in 5th edition really easy. It takes hardly any time to make a 5th edition character. I mean, if you just looked at the character sheet for 5th edition versus 4th edition, you can see that it's going to be way easier to make a character in 5th edition than 4th edition. And so that just makes it more approachable. And I had the same complaint with Pathfinder 2nd edition. I think the Pathfinder 2nd edition character sheet is just really intimidating. It's got so many blocks on there of things that you can fill in. It just, for somebody that has not played the game, it can really be off-putting. So, but 5th edition definitely made the game more approachable in that regard. And I mean, if you look at the Essentials character sheets that came with the red box, they are much more simplified than the regular 4th edition character sheets. So they definitely were taking steps in the right direction there. So feats are an interesting one. I like feats. When I played Pathfinder, I used feats. I would get some only because they were such an integral part of Pathfinder. There's a lot of feats in 4th edition, but I don't know that I really used feats a whole lot in 4th edition. I like never use them in 5th edition. I don't like giving up my ability score increase to get a feat. But I know that there's some people that swear by feats, and they just want to, they actively are aiming to try to get a particular feat or a set of feats or whatever it is. So I don't know. That's one of those ones that, if they didn't have feats, then I would probably be okay with it because I don't really use them very much, but I know that a lot of people do use them. So Benjamin, you mentioned 5.4 edition. So if I could actually get some free time, I had announced a while ago Project 5.4, and that was my intention, was to take the 5th edition SRD that was released under Creative Commons, so it's free to use whatever you want in there, and basically convert it into 4th edition or a 4th edition-esque type system. With the kind of the same structure, and taking some of the way like healing and adding Bloodied in, and a lot of the cool things from 4th edition, and doing the same things. Unfortunately, I announced it, and I spent a little bit of time. I actually made a couple videos where I did a little bit of stuff about it, and then have not had a chance to get back to it. So, because life kind of gets in the way sometimes. So, but I still have out there this idea of making a 5.4. It's something that is very intriguing to me. Oh, I see. Sorry, I misunderstood about the magic classes. I misread what you were saying. So you're saying they were the same in the both. Okay, sorry about that. So I think, yeah, Heroes of the Forgotten Kingdoms was the one that I had, that I was making a druid for. Well, I got it because I wanted to make a druid, but then by the time I got around to it, I think I was doing Pathfinder, and I made a druid in Pathfinder, so I never actually played a druid in 4th edition. So I don't, what's the, I was mentioning the virtual tabletop again. I'm curious, when did like Roll20 start? Any history people out there that are familiar with that? I don't know when Roll20 came about. If that was just after 5th edition had already started, or was Roll20, does it predate that? Because it's because obviously the lack of a virtual tabletop was a huge detriment to 4th edition, and so I can only presume that that Roll20 didn't come out until later, and I'm not sure like Foundry, Foundry's I think newer. What's the other one? I can't think what the other one. There's another big other virtual tabletop, that Fantasy Grounds. I know those have been, I think those are like the two oldest ones, but I don't know when they started, and if 4th edition just missed it by a couple years, and maybe and the other thing is that with 4th edition, Wizards of the Coast was trying to really rein everything in. They wanted to control everything. So they probably wouldn't have allowed anybody to use Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds to do. They wanted their own virtual tabletop, and so they were really locking down the license for 4th edition, which to me that's probably the biggest thing that killed it. Is if you don't have the community support behind it, then people are going to find reasons to not like it. We obviously saw that with the latest open game license situation, but that was basically the same thing they were doing in 4th edition, and it did not work out very well for them. So it's my same argument for why Linux doesn't catch on as an operating system. It doesn't matter how good the operating system is. If there's no apps to run on it, then nobody's going to use it. So, and sometimes if you want to use Adobe Premiere and it doesn't run on Linux, then it doesn't matter how good it is. You're going to need Windows. So same applies to 4th edition. If you didn't let the community actually write content for it, or use it for their stuff, then people are going to not want to play the game. So yeah, so Fire Streak. I was just kind of talking about that. So, fourth edition had the game system license, so they locked it down, and they did not allow if you wanted to make content for fourth edition, you had to stop making content for other editions. So all the people like Paizo who were making content for 3.5 would have to have stopped making content for 3.5 and only made content for fourth edition. And it was the license was not irrevocable and had all these restrictions on it. So much more tighter grip on the fourth edition content than what you had with third edition and with fifth edition. So that is just killer. And that's partly why, I was mentioning before I'm trying to do this, or I had mentioned trying to do the project 5.4, where I take the fifth edition SRD, that's Creative Commons, and add in fourth edition stuff to it. But unfortunately, because fourth edition is so locked down, you can't really create any fourth edition content. So I have to be careful with what I do with that, because I can't actually say that I'm making something that's fourth edition compatible or anything like that. Because fourth edition, from a community standpoint, has to be treated almost like it doesn't exist, because there's no licensing available for it. And that makes it difficult to do it. Now, you could certainly, what is it? 13th Age, I believe that's what it is. That's like a fourth edition-esque game. But you kind of just got to be very careful with what you use, and because you can very easily and accidentally cross that line into using something that's not freely available. Definitely the gaming language. That's a complaint I hear a lot with fourth edition, is that it was written in a very structured way, and it was very clear in how you play the game, and the rules are written almost like a technical manual of how you do this. Whereas fifth edition is written like it's a novel, and you're kind of reading a story, and sprinkled within that story is the rules for the game and the features for the classes and all those sorts of things. I personally like the very structured approach. Make it just come out and say it. If you look at a power, everything I need to know is in that little stat block for the power. But if you look at fifth edition and you find the equivalent of that power in fifth edition, you've got a lot of narrative written in there. And, it's just a different style. And I know some people complain about that from fourth edition. I'm personally fine with it. I probably prefer that. I can understand if you have a different preference, that would be something that turns you away from it, certainly. Yeah, the monsters I love the monster stat blocks in fourth edition. I think that the way that they're written is really nice, where you have the powers and it tells you the power and what it does within the stat block. With and then taking it a step further, even the encounters that you run in fourth edition, they would put the stat blocks, assuming you're running a published adventure, they would put the stat blocks for the monsters in the encounter. So everything you need is right there. And you don't have to flip back and forth. When you play fifth edition, you have a monster that has a bunch of spells. And so then you've got to go, anytime you want to use one, you've got to bring out a different book to pull up the spells and look to see what the spell does. And, if they've got 10 spells to choose from, well, maybe they wouldn't have 10, but say they got 3 spells to choose from, you got 3 spells to look at to try to figure out which one you want to use, assuming that they're spells that, you're maybe not that familiar with. And whereas in fourth edition, if they had 3 powers, the specifics of those powers were written right there in the monster stat block. And then in the encounter, fifth edition just says there's 3 goblins and 4 hobgoblins. You've got to go to the monster manual and pull up the stat blocks for a monster and a hobgoblin. Whereas in fourth edition, they actually put the stat block for the goblin and the hobgoblin in the encounter. So you don't have to flip anywhere. It's everything that you need is right there. I think that was that is a huge thing that I miss from fourth edition, is how they structured that stuff. Which goes back to, it's no secret that the fifth edition was not written for dungeon masters. Fourth edition is a dungeon masters game. They made the game, and there's so much stuff in there that is made easy for a dungeon master to run and to create encounters and build adventures. And so that's what fourth edition was for. The Dungeon Master's Guide for fourth edition are great. I love both of the Dungeon Master's Guides. I hate that they had, their plan was to release a book every year. We got 3 players handbooks, we got 3 monster manuals, but we only got 2 Dungeon Master's Guide. I would love to have seen another Dungeon Master's Guide. I don't count the Essentials Dungeon Master's book, because it's basically the, just a reworked version of the regular Dungeon Master Guide. But those books were really truly Dungeon Master's Guides. They have great stuff that applies beyond fourth edition, and they're just wonderfully written. The fifth edition Dungeon Master's Guide it's fine. But it covers stuff in it that you don't need in the first Dungeon Master's Guide. The whole stuff, honestly, I feel like all the stuff about planes and stuff, a whole section of the book about planar adventures, that doesn't belong in the first Dungeon Master's Guide. Maybe you put it in a supplement, a later Dungeon Master's Guide 2 or whatever. But, for people buying a Dungeon Master's Guide for the first iteration of this game, you're just focusing on the wrong things. And so that's one of the things that fifth edition I just wish they did better, and I hope they do better with the 2024 updates. They say they're going to, but I'll believe it when I see it. At one point, after the open game license thing was dying down, there was a comment from Wizards of the Coast where they said something along the lines of they're actually looking at licensing of prior editions. It may not have been that outright, but whatever the statement was, it made it sound like they were actually looking at possibly releasing stuff from prior editions under some sort of license, open license. And I keep holding out hope that at some point I'm going to see a headline that says that they're releasing some fourth edition stuff under Creative Commons or something like that. But at the same time, it's like first edition, second edition, BX, Back Me, all those earlier editions, they didn't have any licensing with those. Yet people make game. I mean, Old School Essentials is basically based on the, I think, Back Me edition or BX, one of the two. And, but there's no license for that, but they're using those same rules. And, so if they, as long as they're just using mechanics, then that's different. But, from a legal perspective, there's a fine line that you're walking there. So I do hope that at some point Wizards maybe releases some licenses for the older materials so that we can actually see some really good content coming out for it. I would love to see people starting to put out some fourth edition material. One of the other things with that fourth edition license is it required you to register with Wizards of the Coast. And you had to get approval. So it's not like I could just simply say, oh, well, I'll go ahead and I just want to make fourth edition content, so I'll use the game system license and I'll do that. I'd have to register with Wizards of the Coast to say I'm going to do this. And since they're not making fourth edition, they're not going to approve anybody to actually do that anymore. So it's you're kind of stuck. If you wanted to make fourth edition content, there's really nothing you can do. I'll have to look at Orcus. I think somebody mentioned Orcus to me before, and I keep meaning to look at it, but I probably keep forgetting the name of it. So, I'm sure that if you had, the key is you can't say something is compatible with fourth edition. You can't say it's fourth edition D&D, a fourth edition module or anything like that. But you could certainly make a module that has powers in it that uses the same mechanics of 4th edition and just publish it as a module. And it's perfectly compatible with 4th edition. And as long as you're not using anything from 4th edition, any of their stuff from the books and everything in there is stuff you've put together, then you're certainly free to do that. You probably could, make references to certain monsters and things, but you couldn't put any of those monster stat blocks or anything in your encounter. You would have to just reference it. And then, sometimes I think probably just referencing it would be fine, but I'm not a copyright lawyer, so I couldn't officially say that, but I'm sure there's ways to get by some of that stuff if you wanted to make 4th edition content. But I always just worry about having to walk that line and, not being a copyright lawyer myself and knowing where that line is, it can be a little difficult. And so I'm just hesitant to do that. Ooh. Loving all these comments. I'm having a great time reading through all the comments. I appreciate all this feedback. It's wonderful. Unfortunately, I think I'm falling behind in reading them though. It's really great discussion. So Tigress, you mentioned the verisimilitude, one of my favorite words, but that's one of the things that comes up. I do see that a lot, where it's like the people complain that the martial characters have these powers, and it's not believable that they would be able to do that thing. And how is it that this person can do this thing or that thing? And I just like, we're talking about a fantasy world, a made up world where people can do all kinds of things. That we have spellcasters that do all these amazing things, yet somehow it's too unbelievable that a fighter might be able to also do something that seems out of the natural world. And somehow that's a bridge too far. That now suddenly, nope. I believed it. I believed this world could exist. This fantasy world could exist with all of these spellcasters and all these magic items and all this stuff happening. But the notion of a barbarian being able to move an adjacent ally 10 squares, that's too much. There's no explanation for how that could work. Therefore, it's too much. Can't do it. So I've always thought that it was humorous as an argument for why they don't like 4th edition, that you're going to be so specific that you can ignore all the other stuff, but that's too much. And I do know that, there's quite a few people that will complain about 4th edition. And I know that I've had a couple where they'll leave a comment and they'll make some snide comment about 4th edition, and I'll ask some questions, and they'll admit to the fact that they haven't actually played it, or they played like a couple games or something. And so, take it with a grain of salt. They want to get their voice out there as somebody who has an opinion on it, but they really haven't played it enough or at all to be able to have an opinion. So how many of the people are like that? I don't know. If you've played it for enough to form your opinion, and then that's fine. I'm not, it doesn't bother me so much that people don't like it. What only bothers me is when they don't like it and they try to diminish people that do like it and act like that it's not really D&D and things like that. That's where it bothers me. Yeah, Trusty, definitely DM for, if you want a game made for the Dungeon Master, it's 4th edition. It was really, I really enjoyed putting together encounters and adventures for 4th edition. And I realize, having then moved to 5th edition, and I did 5th edition for a long time, and now going back to 4th edition, I really appreciate all of that DM stuff that they had for you. And the fact that it was so, it was just, there were so many tools available for you to make your encounters. It was just wonderful. So So, I could sit here and read the comments forever, and I'm falling behind on the comments. But I did want to make a character. Well, here, let me ask this. I'll put it out there to the group. I had two other things planned. Either making a character, a 4th edition character, which I was going to put it out there to the group. What kind of character we make? Probably limited to the Player's Handbook 1, because that's the only one I have pulled up to load on the screen. But we could either make a character, or I was also thinking about actually trying to kind of run through an encounter using some of the other character sheets that I have. If you saw the pinned chat, there's I've got 4 characters that I had made a while ago, and I was going to try to use those to run through a couple encounters and kind of see if everyone wanted to participate in that, or we could just keep talking about 4th edition. I'm open for anything. So this is it's up to everybody else what everybody wants to do. Meanwhile, I'll go keep reading through the comments that try to see if I can get caught up on everybody. So I hope, I try not to gatekeep on anything. I try to really keep an open mind and be, I want people to play whatever version of the game is good for them. And if people don't like 4th edition, then I have no problem with them not liking 4th edition. If you don't like 3rd, 5th, 1st, 2nd, whatever it is, then, that's you. If it's not your thing, then it's not your thing. All more power to you. Find the one that you love. If it's not D&D and it's something else, also great. That's my thing. I just don't like when people throw shade at other versions. Just because you found the one that's perfect for you does not mean the other ones are bad. It just means that they weren't for you. So that's always been my thing with, there's just way too many comments out there from people that have that attitude that because they don't like it, therefore it must be bad. Warlord, making a warlord. Okay. I'm on board with that. Oh yeah. It's okay. So, well, that's the vote we got. Anybody else, different opinion? Majority rules. Right now we got warlord character on the table. Trying to get my stuff together here. Yeah, sorry. I mostly am sticking with the Player's Handbook 1 just because that's all I had time to get pulled up on my in my screen here. In the future, I actually want to try to load all of the Player's Handbooks and the Martial Powers Guide and the Divine Powers and the extra books as well, so that I can have full reign and we can make any character that we want. So, but today, to get this started, I'm just going to do that. I'll be honest, this is kind of a test stream because I've been wanting to get back into doing some live streams, and I'm trying to figure out what the things are that we want to do on the live streams. So, I was like, all right, well, let's take a look at the rules and we'll talk about that, and had great conversation there. And then I was like, well, we could always create a character. So let me try to put some stuff together. We can make a character. And then I was like, well, but what if we played through an encounter? And so I got some stuff set up where we could actually play through an encounter as well. So, so that I'm trying to get a feel for what everybody would like to do on the live streams. And that's what I want to do, because I really enjoy getting together with the community. This is like the equivalent of me going to the game store and just hanging out with everybody that's that likes the same, game that I like, and just talking about it and doing stuff with it. And I love creating characters. I love building encounters. I love playing encounters. So I'll do anything. And I look at it as like, I'll get here on the live stream, and if I was all by myself, I would still be doing it because I enjoy it so much. But at the same time, I want to do stuff that everybody else wants to do too, and would like to participate in. So this is just kind of my experiment to see what everybody would like to do. And that's what we'll do. And if what everybody wants to do is just sit and talk about, 4th edition or D&D in general, I'm all right with that too. I just like talking to everybody. Hey, Sean. Yeah, I'm glad that you're having fun playing the game. It's I started with 4th edition and it was just a blast. It's what got me hooked. It's I love it. I think there's so much I definitely would love to have seen more of the 4th edition stuff get pulled into 5th edition when they went that way. I've looked through all of the different editions, but I've only played 4th edition. I've played 3rd edition, not even 3.5. I played 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, and Pathfinder, so 3.75, if you will. That's the only. I've played Pathfinder 2nd edition too, but as far as D&D versions, I haven't actually played any of the other versions, but I've looked through all those rule sets as part of comparisons and trying to be up on the history and all that. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So Joshua, you mentioned the tactics. That's another thing I forgot from the encounters. I love in the published adventures that it had, for practically every encounter, it had monster tactics in there, which is such a thing that's missing from 5th edition. You get it every once in a while. They'll have an encounter that has tactics in there. But to me, that's super important for the DM to have an idea for what the creatures are going to do. When you don't put it, it just puts a lot of pressure on the dungeon master to have to figure that stuff out. And it's just another example of 4th edition being so much better focused on the dungeon master than 5th edition was. I've done a little bit of theater of the mind stuff with 4th edition. We did that when we started noticing that a lot of your kind of more mundane encounters were just taking a little too long. We did come up with some theater of the mind stuff to make them play a little faster. So I kind of wanted to jot those down and put them and make it so that it's you have the option. Not every encounter to me needs to be a full-on break out the battle mat and let's have at it. But some of them could just be theater of the mind. So that is a gap in 4th edition. I wish they had, maybe had a little bit of something in there to help make it so you didn't have to do the battles every single time. I have looked at 13th Age, and so I definitely like what I see there. I want to try to look at it some more and get a feel for it, because I definitely like where they were going with that. All right, so we are going to do a warlord. So let me flip over to get my right screen up here. So let's go to my making characters and let's go through this. I'm going to try to take some notes here. So we are going to make a warlord, but we got to figure out what what race we want to be. So let me flip over there. So let's see. So we have Dragonborn, Dwarf, Eladrin, Elf, Half-Elf, Halfling, Human, and Tiefling. So where are we landing on the race that we want for our warlord? Any thoughts from anyone out there? Hey, Trusty, glad you could join us from Australia. Appreciate your comments there. Thank you for joining the stream. I know the Joshua, you mentioned the board game. I think that's that's another thing that's interesting to me. It's another complaint I hear is that it made D&D a board game, and that's not a big deal for me. If it made it a board game, then okay, that's just, if it feels like a board game to somebody, that's fine. But it's what I find interesting is that they're doing all this crossover stuff now with Magic the Gathering, and so you've got all the Magic the Gathering people that they're trying to get into Dungeons and Dragons. Magic the Gathering is a card game, and and in fourth edition you had these powers, and you have, even now with fifth edition, you can get cards with all of the powers and class features and spells and everything. But in fourth edition, you had the same thing, and you had basically you could say that they're cards. And so it just struck me as interesting that you had a version of D&D that was kind of almost getting close to being a card game in itself, where you had these powers that could be in the form of cards, and now you're trying to do crossovers from another card game into D&D. And just another case of some folks seem okay with that, but not okay with it when it's fourth edition. It's like, it seems okay when it's done over here and when it's done over here, but it's not okay when it's done in here. That's always an interesting argument for me. So let's see, we've got half-elves. We got votes for half-elves. Dwarf, we got a vote for dwarf, another half-elf, dragonborn, and so 2 half-elves, dwarf, and dragonborn, I think is what we're looking at. I think we will go with half-elves then. Let me make a note. I'm just going to write it down. Hopefully I got to bring up my note thing here. Hang on. Hopefully that works. Let's see. We'll put that over here. So we're going to do, where is it? Oh, I can't put it over there. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Excuse me a minute. I got to put this over here. All right. So we're going to do half-elf, and it's going to be a warlord, and there we go. So let's try to get back to this here. We know our class, and then we got to do our ability scores. So let's actually go in order here. So I'm going to do a half-elf, and let's actually write down some of our stuff here. Otherwise, I'll forget to put it in here. Yeah, I have like most of the spell card books for 5th edition, so they which I like. I like when you can it's a lot easier to have those cards and pull them out when you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, and than to have to try to look through the book every single time, especially as you get into all the expansion books that have other stuff in them. It can be, a real pain to try to keep track of, flip through all the pages to get to the things that you are trying to do. So half-elf, average height 5'5" to 6'2". So we'll just go with 6 feet. Keep it simple. And average weight 130, 190. We will split the difference, 160. Ability scores +2 to, I'll make a note of this one here. So we've got a +2 to Constitution and a +2 to Charisma. Size is medium. And race features, I will put low light. Languages, common. And Elven. And then one other, we'll get to the one other. Just put a +1 there for now. And so the other features we have are the dilettante. And I'm going to put, if anybody wants this form fillable character sheet, I'll put a link in the description. I have it out on Drive-Thru RPG. So, but I'll put a link in the description if anybody's interested in it. So we're on page 42. And then dual heritage and group diplomacy. So we get a first level at will power from a class different from ours, and we can use it as an encounter power. So we basically get an extra at will power. Come on, where's my, okay. So we'll just make a note of that. Dual heritage, you can take feats that either elf or human, okay, that's fine. And you grant allies within 10 squares of you a +1 racial bonus to diplomacy checks. Okay, I won't deal with that for now. So that's our half-elf. So now let's look at our warlord. All right. Doesn't have a place for the role. Power sources martial. Key abilities are strength, intelligence, and charisma. So let me make a note of those so we can remember that. So we'll get a +2 on charisma, which will be good. I'm interested in some of the stuff I see. I know I see some conversation about like playing solo, and I'm always interested in what some tools that are out there for playing solo, because that's something that I have the D&D board game, which is kind of, or several of them, which are kind of based on 4th edition. But I'm not keen on them. I don't think they play very well. I got them mostly because they come with miniatures, so I can use the miniatures on my games. But I like the idea of it, but I feel like they're missing a little something. So I'm curious what other tools people out there use for if you're going to do a solo game. Are there some other tools that you use to make it interesting and keep it from just being like, just combat and stuff? If there's other things you can do. So let me know what you have. All right, proficiencies: cloth, leather, hide, chainmail. I guess I will write those in here as well. Actually, here I'll I think that's. I don't have doesn't really have a place for that. I'm gonna write it on here so that I can remember it. Cloth, leather, hide, chainmail, and a light shield. Okay. And then for C is simple, melee, I'll do ranged, and then military melee. So we'll use that later when we're picking out our stuff. Bonus to defenses, we get a +1. I'll go ahead and write that actually we'll put in here. So with our class, we're going to get a +1 to our fortitude and a +1 to our will. So we'll go ahead and fill that one in here. So we get that. Then we have our hit points is 12 plus our constitution, but we don't know our constitution. And so we will circle back to those later. All right, we are trained in 4 skills: athletics, diplomacy, endurance, heal, history, and intimidate. Oh yeah, the red box, the player's book that came with the red box, that was the whole character creation process, was going through that solo adventure where you kind of chose how you made decisions. You know, what do you want to do? Do you want to charge at them? Do you want to try to hide in the trees? Do you want to do, you know, to ask you those questions, and then you use that to build your character. So, which was why that was probably so approachable for me as someone who had not played the game before, because I could, you just kind of go through this little choose your own path adventure and you end up with a character at the end. So yeah, and I've seen some solo adventures that are published that way, which are fine. I was curious if there's ways to play like just a regular published adventure, but there's some tools to help you do it if you wanted to do it solo. I think, I can't remember who it was. I think maybe it was Joshua said earlier how 4th edition was great because it had the tactics. So it allowed you to play some of these things as solo adventures because you could just follow the tactics that were listed in the book in the encounter. So I'm going to go ahead and just, let's see. I'm going to start filling in the skills. If somebody has some different skills you'd want to do, then just let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and fill in. So we'll do athletics. And then we'll do, what do we get? 4. Endurance. I think we'll do an endurance, heal, and intimidate. That's the ones I'm going to go with. You can change them later. If anybody comes up with some different ones you'd rather I do, I can come back and change those. So there are 2 build options here: Inspiring Warlord, Tactical Warlord. I'm not going to worry too much about that. We'll kind of pick our own things depending on what everybody wants. Class features. So we have Combat Leader, Commanding Presence, and Inspiring Word, which looks like a power. So, and we'll look at those in a little more detail later. So there we have our class features. Diplomacy, huh? All right. Which one do I give up in favor of diplomacy? That's the question. If we're going for, I guess maybe athletics seems like more, because the bonus that we're going to get is for constitution and charisma. There's not a constitution. Endurance, we're already going to have endurance, so I'll keep that one. We're not going to get a bonus to strength. So I think I'll get rid of, yeah, okay. That would make more sense because we'll get a bonus to charisma. So I'll give up athletics and we'll put that one in diplomacy instead. All right. And checking back in here. Now we get to do our ability scores. So I'm just going to use the array. Normally I like to roll the scores, but I'm gonna keep it simple. We'll use the array for here. So we got let's see. 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10. Oh, I should write it the way they do. So strength, con, boy, that's ugly. Dex, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So we know we're going to get a +2 to our charisma. So if we want, and we have a couple skills that are, so do we want strength to be, so we want to give the 16 to strength? If we did the 16 to strength and then did our, because we're not going to get any bonus for strength, so it would just be a flat 16 if we did that. And then if we did the charisma, we're going to get a +2, which would make it also 16. So we could, so we could make that the 14. And then our constitution, we will also get a bonus. If we're okay, then leaving the rest of these as, let's see, what's our skills? We got one wisdom skill, so maybe that one should get the 12. And, oh no, we'll do, we'll do intelligence. We'll get the 12. And then we'll do wisdom and then 10 for dexterity. So we won't be terribly dexterous. All right, so that's our, I think that's our plan there. So for strength, we're going to have 16. Constitution will be we get a +2 bonus to it. It'll be a 13 plus the 2 bonus, making it a 15. Dexterity will just be a straight 10. Intelligence will be a straight 12. Wisdom will be an 11. And then charisma, we get a +2 bonus, which will make it a 16. And then our modifiers are going to be 3, 2, 0, 1, 0, and 3. And then these will be the same. So 3, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, and 3. All right, there we go. And then this ability will be a 3. This one will be a 1. I'm not supposed to, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but all right, so there we go. That's our ability score. So let me circle back to the next thing. We have to choose our skills. We actually already did that. So we chose our skills. Now we get to choose feats. So let's look at that part. So what do we get for feats? I'm drawing a blank on what we get for feats at first level. Oh, so I guess we just choose a feat. We get 1 feat. So I think I'll probably, let's see, I wasn't going to use, so we got Tactical Warlord, Aspiring Warlord. I think we're probably, well, we go either way because Charisma and Strength are our 2 best. So we could do either one of these. Inspiring Recovery. So let's take a look at the feats. Let's actually look at it. Inspired Recovery, Warlord, Inspiring Presence class feature. When an ally who can see you spends an action point to gain an extra standard action, that ally can roll a saving throw as a free action, adding your charisma modifier to the roll. Well, that sounds right up our alley, so I am all for that. So, Inspired Recovery. And that is going to be on page 198. All right, we are moving along. Got our feats. Now the fun part. Now we get to choose our powers. So we get to choose our regular powers, but then we also get to choose an at-will power from another class and use it as an encounter power. So let's see what we got here. So Inspiring Word is an encounter power, so we'll do that. So if we get I believe two powers at first level. So two at-will powers to choose from. So Commander Strike, ally of your choice makes a melee an ally of your choice makes a melee basic attack. So you basically tell somebody else. Yeah, I think with so going back to look at the scores. So the scores that I put in, I gave our highest to strength and to charisma. So I balanced those two out. And then second is constitution, since it said that our top three skills that we wanted were, we got a bonus to constitution. So I put that one higher. Intelligence was supposed to be higher, but I just left it at this 12 since I wanted to take advantage of that +2 for con. So, but strength and charisma are our two big ones. So Commander Strike, basically you let someone else make an attack, and that attack does damage, and you get to add your intelligence modifier, which would only be 1 point. Then Furious Smash, we attack their fortitude. Our strength versus fortitude deal damage equal to your strength modifier, and then choose an ally adjacent to either you or the target. This ally applies your charisma modifier as a power bonus to the attack roll and the damage roll on their next turn. If the ally does not attack the target by the end of their turn, then the bonus is lost. So that one you're kind of setting someone up to do an attack on their turn by giving them a bonus. So you do a little damage now, and then you get a bonus to somebody else. Viper Strike, strength modifier. And then if the target shifts before the start of the next turn, it provokes an opportunity attack from an ally of your choice. So basically doing an opportunity attack when they wouldn't otherwise get one. And then before Wolfpack Tactics, before you attack, you let one ally adjacent to either you or your target shift 1 square as a free action. Strength modifier. So our strongest ones are going to be, this one is using our charisma modifier and our strength modifier. So this one feels like we definitely want that one. I don't think our intelligence is one of our lower ones, so we'll skip the Commander Strike, but I think Furious Smash is one that we want. And then this one lets us use our strength modifier. And this one also, I think Viper Strike probably makes more sense though. Ooh, I like the fact that you can make someone else shift though. I want to do that one. So Furious Smash and Wolfpack Tactics is what I'm voting for there. So that gives us those. And then we get a level 1. And I think we get one of each of those. Let me see. Where was the... where is it? I think I went too far. There. 2, 1, and 1. Yep. Just wanted to make sure. So we get a 1 encounter, exploit, and 1 utility. Guarding attack. So I probably want to stick with the ones that are they're like all strength. So we're pretty good there. Any one of them. Someone mentioned that lazy warlord earlier, so I'll have to look that one. Do we know what book that was in? Was that in one of the other players' handbooks? Because I definitely want to look up that one. I like that. I like the idea of that. One ally adjacent to you, either you or the target gets a +2. These are some pretty good powers. Ooh, so inspiring presence. Okay, so we kind of skipped over that. So commanding presence, we choose one of the following 2 benefits. We have to choose inspiring presence because we chose that feat. So I need to actually put that down as one of our class features. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place here. So inspiring presence. Wow, that's pretty cool. So that one, they get some hit point recovery whenever they spend an action point to take an extra action. I like that one. All right, so this one, the guarding attack, in addition to the regular hit, since we have inspiring presence, the power bonus to armor class equals 1 plus your charisma modifier. So that is a pretty substantial one. So we probably want to skip Warlord's Favor because it uses the tactical presence, so that's not going to work as well for us. So I think Hammer and Anvil and Leaf on the Wind is too... oh, I see. So it was kind of a one-off build that someone put together. Nice. Ally adds your charisma modifier to the damage. I like the ones where you get to move things around. So I like Leaf on the Wind because it allows you to swap places with an ally, which can come in handy if you've got an ally that's kind of struggling with hit points or something. So I always like those. But this one, you get to do an extra attack with it too, so that's kind of nice too. I could go either way on those. So we're definitely going to do... Oh, I only get one. Sorry. Okay, we only get one of these, so I don't get to choose another one anyway. So I'm going to do guarding attack as this one. And then I get I'm just going to make a note on this because we may not get around to actually finding that one in here, but I will fill that one in at some point later. And then we get a daily power. So strength, strength, strength. They all are doing strength. I like the ones that have misses. So, so lead the attack. that gives bonuses to everybody. And then even on a miss, they get something. Yeah, I like the White Raven Onslaught. So I like I like the ones where you can move things, but I'm good with either one of them. I like the ones that have a miss. I don't like the ones where you don't get something on a miss, or unless these are, yeah, they don't have the whatever the tag was that allows you to do it again. But I'm always hesitant to take the ones that don't have a special miss property with them. So I'll go with lead the attack. And there we go. Now we've got our powers chosen. Good deal. And let's see, we've got our powers. Now we need our equipment. What was the ability scores? Equipment, 100 gold. So we've got 100 gold to shop for our equipment. Let's have a look. We are proficient with cloth, leather, hide, chainmail. So cloth is cheap. I'm going to go with leather. Hey, Tigers, great having you here. Appreciate all the feedback. Sleep well. Enjoy your long rest. I'm going to go with leather armor. So it's going to be a +2 armor bonus, but there's no penalties for anything. So we'll just do leather armor. And we got a +2 bonus. I'll go ahead and fill that in here with our +2. And then we get to our weapons. And simple melee or ranged, and military melee. Oh, I appreciate you staying up late for the stream. Very very glad that you were able to join us and participate. I think we'll do a mace. There we go. That seems to make sense. Do a mace. And then, so we'll do a mace. I didn't write down the page number for the other thing. 218. And then ranged, simple. We'll do a hand crossbow. And actually, I forgot we could do military melee weapons also. So maybe that's what we want to do. We'll do a short sword. Let's do that. Okay. So that helps us out there, because now that's a little better weapon that we can work with. So let me go ahead and write in what we get there for our damage. So the damage on short sword is going to be I believe it's a 1d6. Yes, 1d6. And the damage on the hand crossbow is also a 1d6. There we go. All right. We got that equipment. We'll skip over the adventuring gear for now, kind of keep things moving along. And now we can fill in all the numbers. This is the fun part. So let me go back to the Warlord because we can do our hit points now. So 12 plus our Constitution score. So our maximum HP is going to be 27. If my math is correct, which means that's going to be 13. And then our surge value is going to be 6. And our surges per day is 7 plus the Constitution modifier. So it's going to be 9 per day. All right. So we got that. Our dexterity is 0. Level 0. So our initiative is 0. Armor class, this is going to be 10. Oops. Nope. Oh, that would have made more sense, wouldn't it? See? Battle axe. What am I thinking? Let me go back. Oh my. What am I thinking? Short sword when I got a 1d10 battle axe right there. Thank you for keeping me honest. See, that's why we do these things together. So we don't make mistakes, if you will. So there we go. We got that. Back to filling in our numbers. I don't think we have any bonuses for... plus, we already did +1 fortitude, +1 will, so we got all those. So I think that is all we have for armor class. Because our dexterity is lower, so our armor class is just a 12. Am I missing something in the calculation? Correct me if I'm overlooking something else I'm supposed to add in there, but I don't see anything. Already added those, and a 14 there. Speed came from our race, which was 6. And we didn't get any deductions for our armor, so that's still going to be a 6. Let's go down and do our skills here. Fill all these in. So dexterity is just 0, so that'll be easy. All the dexterities are going to be 0. Intelligence is 1. So we'll do all those. Strength is 3. Just the 1 strength. Charisma was also 3. Wisdom is 0. And Constitution is 2. Oops, I missed a dexterity, which was 0. All right, we don't have any armor penalties, and I don't believe we had any other bonuses. I'm always hesitant to do the ranged weapons that you actually throw, because then you get one shot at it. So I like the ones where you have ammo to show instead, so that you don't have to go pick up your weapon in between. But that's my personal preference. It maybe isn't as cool, but... Yeah, 27 hit points is pretty impressive. So I remember that when 5th edition came out, they talked about how fragile all the characters were. So 0, 1, 3, 3, 3, 8, 0, 7, 5, 1, 0, 8, 3 and 0. Okay, now we have our skills. So with that, we can, so our passive insight, our insight is a 0. That's not terribly helpful. And our perception is 0, so that doesn't get us a whole lot. But there we go. So our attack workspace, we'll have our battle axe. And then this one will be our hand crossbow. Attack bonus with the battle axe should be a +3, and the well, actually we'll do it all of this. But it's a 3 for the ability. This one is going to be a 0. I don't think we get the proficiency. We got the battle axe had a +2 bonus for the proficiency. Yes, proficiency +2 bonus. The hand crossbow is also a +2 bonus. 2. So there we go. So I think we're looking at a +5. Oh, I actually coded the math in there. Look at that. Okay. And then, oh, so we actually add in the ability score. But there wouldn't be anything for that. So there we go. So that is our, I think that's most of the math, right? Did I miss any math? No experience points. I did the 2 for the armor. I didn't get a shield. I did not get a shield. I should probably get a shield. So I did the +2 because I got leather armor or hide armor. What did I get? I got leather armor. And that was the +2. I didn't pick up a shield, but I forgot that I was proficient in the shield. So if I get a light shield, so I don't have any penalties, that would give me an extra 1. I'll just do the 1 so I can make that a 13, and I'll go ahead and put a light shield. So that way we have that, and that's page 214 as well. All right. So we got our initiative. We have all of our ability score stuff. We've got our armor class, fortitude. Yeah, I don't think my I don't think any of these are going to be coming back to me though. So if we get them enchanted, then sure, we can make them magical and come back. But that's pretty cool. Speed, battle axe. So I'll skip the basic attacks. I mean, which because it's basically the same thing that we have there. +5, +2. Got our damage. I think we are looking good. I get one more language I can choose, but I'll take care of that at a different time. And then we've got our powers. I got one more power to choose from a different class that I'll put in there. And I think someone had mentioned, I'll have to go back through the chat, and I'll find someone had mentioned a power that we could probably use there. So I'll go back and look at that. And I think that's that. We spent 5, 30, 45. Didn't do too bad. Ooh, the hand crossbow. Well, I wasn't doing too bad, but 45, 70. So I've only got 30 gold pieces left, but that's fine. That's not too bad. Do I get to add intelligence? I added dexterity. Do I get to add intelligence? Do I get to choose the highest of the two? I'm a little rusty on calculating. I'll go for it. I want to say. My armor class keeps climbing, so I'm good with that. Okay, I'll have to. Yeah, I think I remember. I think I struggled with that once before. Last time I was making a character, I think I had the same thing, and because it's like it's buried somewhere in the book, and I keep forgetting about that portion of it. So, but there we go. There is our warlord. Any ideas for names while we're taking our last look on it? If we got a name for this one, I'll finish it off, and then I'll publish it out there for consumption for anyone to download if you want it. So, so I will do that once we're offline here. So, but yeah, there's our character, our warlord, half-elf warlord. Not much for initiative, so borderline lazy, and but not bad. I think we've got he's got kind of a theme to him with kind of moving other people around and allowing people to deal extra damage, things like that. So I think he's pretty good. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap this one up. I had thought about trying to play out an encounter, but I don't think that we're gonna really have time to do that. So I will save that one for next time. I'd love to hear any comments that anyone has on what you'd like to do on these live streams. I think the next week I plan on doing one. I'm going to do an encounter. I've got some character sheets out there on my website to download. And we'll use those and we'll actually play through an encounter. I don't know how that's going to go. But we'll kind of do it. It'll almost be like doing solo play, but with everyone in the chat kind of helping make decisions and things. So we'll do that next week, and we'll take it from there. But if any comments on things you want to do on the streams, I'm happy to do it. I just love talking about D&D and doing D&D stuff and 4th edition and whatever it is. So I just love ideas for that anyone has on what you want to do. But I appreciate everybody joining me tonight on the stream. It was a blast. I had a great time. So please, if you want to help the channel, please do check out the stuff in the description. There are some links down there with affiliate stuff where if you're going to buy something anyway, use my affiliate link and it would really help me out. So please do check that out if you can. Subscribe to the newsletter and all those things. But most of all, I appreciate you being here and participating in the stream and offering your thoughts on all this stuff. It was a load of fun. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you again next week. Until next time, take care, everybody.